Hello everybody and welcome back to Rolling Solo and the second scenario of the Gloomhaven second reprint that's currently going on in Kickstarter. If you have not jumped in on this Kickstarter, now is the time to do it. It's currently open for 20 plus more days. So the description's in the link below, and obviously that'll change as time goes on and this video becomes older. But if you're getting this now or you're hearing this now, all that information will be in the description below. So what I've done here is I've actually set up the next scenario that Isaac has released that we're going to play through. And I have the Craighart there and the Tinkerer to his, basically set in these two positions based on the actual rules for the scenario. Now the only thing I will mention is I may, by the next video, flip these in order to determine which one I think should be in the right spot to go forward. I just put them down for now, but I want to go over the basic storyline, the backstory of this whole thing. So the scenario itself has kind of a tricky name to say, but it's a Quatryl Scorned, I think is how you pronounce it. And this particular scenario, again, doesn't have any, and I want to warn everybody that thinks there may or may not be spoilers in this, there are none. He's making this campaign spoiler free, it's mini, and it's not part of the main game that you get when you purchase the game. So just a quick heads up. So essentially this scenario, the decision path was based on all of the voting that took place on Board Game Geek to board the Quatryl ship. And our goal is to kill the smuggler captain. Now we know the smuggler captain, I will let you know, and you guys already know, based on probably seeing the PDF, that he's located in this back section of the ship. So we just have to essentially fight our way through. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the introduction, give us some story. So everything in your rational mind is telling you to avoid this ship. The overwhelming stench of the caustic smoke, the loud banging as the rickety engines rattle around, and the vague mumblings of the captain about what lies in the ship's hold. All of it is telling you to walk away, but somehow your senses of adventure gets the better of you. Despite her aloof demeanor, you catch a faint hint that Drell, the Quatryl captain, actually does seem pleased to have you aboard, as the ship weighs anchor and sputters out of the harbor. The grimace on her face could almost be construed as a smile. I may actually have a hit, a small bit of luck having you lot aboard, Dre says. A contingency plan in case this thing goes sideways. You try to press her on what exactly she means by thing, but instead Drell goes into a long meandering story about how she used to be a smuggler. She and her best friend Lucy worked for a man, I don't know how to, Lucy worked for a man named Barty Half-Ear. Wow. Building and repairing engines for his ship so that he could evade capture and have the upper hand in a battle. Drell and Lucy lived well enough until one of the engines blew out during a bloody combat, leaving the ship vulnerable to be boarded. Barty lost many of his men in the ensuing carnage. As punishment for the failure, Barty killed Lucy in front of her crew and threw her overboard. You can see Drell shake with rage as she describes the events. Just slit poor Lucy's throat and made me watch as she bled out on the deck. I screamed and screamed, but I couldn't do nothing else. She then describes how she escaped Barty's ship and has been planning her revenge ever since. It is at this point that a knot starts to form in the pit of your stomach and you begin to notice that the ship has not been following a straight course, but rather has been zigzagging through the water since you left Merchant's Bay, almost as if you are hunting something. There the bastard is, Drell suddenly spits. Stupid sod hasn't even changed his patrol pattern in all these years. You see a small white sail out on the horizon. As Drell, I hope I pronounced that right, Drell lays down on the throttle, the sail grows quickly and steadily larger. You stare in the wide-eyed horror as your ship continues to speed. Sorry. Lost immersion. Until your ship begins to speed closer until you see the shapes of men scrambling around the deck. They look horrified too. An explosion rips through the air from cannon fire, but Drell expertly maneuvers the ship in evasion. Your ship is much smaller and has no apparent weapons, but that doesn't seem to faze Drell at all. You desperately ask what she's planning, but she just stares ahead in grim determination and mutters, "We're gonna sink the bastard, even if it kills us all." Before you can object to her line of reasoning, you are thrown to the ground as Drell flips a switch and the death trap lurches forward at alarming speed. Drell has maneuvered around to the stern of the larger ship and you now race straight ahead on a clear ramming course. All you can do is brace yourself before the two ships collide and everything goes white. When your vision returns, what lies ahead before your eyes is a scene of chaos. The demolished bow of the Drell ship has punched a hole straight into the back hull of the larger vessel, and water is pouring at an alarming rate. Twisted metal and splintered wood litter the scene where the two ships have merged, and the foul acrid gas rises up out of the ruined engines, permeating the area. The bombs, Drell coughed, lying wounded on the floor. They didn't go off. Use them to kill Barty. There are needed a number of small explosives that appear. Let me make sure. Yeah. There are indeed a number of small explosives that appear to have fallen out of the central casing due to the crash and now litter the floor. You're not especially inclined to follow the instructions of the suicide of Quatryl, but the crew on board the largest ship seems to be recovering from the collision. As well, they don't seem too happy about what happened. Perhaps the bombs could come in handy. So there are some special rules in this particular scenario, guys, that I want to make mention so that we understand going forward what these special rules are and that we don't get confused during gameplay. So in this particular campaign, when you loot a treasure tile, place it on your character map. These are bombs, and if you have a bomb on your character map, you may forgo a top action of one of your cards to throw the bomb, removing it from your mat to perform an attack 6, range 4 action, or destroy 1 obstacle in range 4. So that's essentially the bonus. Now, there's all kinds of other content for this scenario that I'm not going to go over until we hit it. But essentially, I want to let you guys know that in the actual scenario, these are treasure tiles. There's actually tiles like this that have a treasure chest on them, and they're placed in all these 5 locations. Instead of doing the treasure chest, I just dropped some black beads down because, well, they look more like bombs to me. And I just thought it'd be kind of fun. I also threw in some obstacles, like instead of having boulder tokens, I actually have a couple rocks myself that I just put in place. So there's 2 of them here, and there's 1 over here. I want to make mention that these are all water tiles. They're considered hazardous terrain, cost 2 to move into it, but not 2 to move out, unless, of course, you're moving across. Then it'd be like 2 in terms of how much movement you have to spend. Obstacles, of course, you can't move through. Everything's going to move around them. And then we've got traps. So everything that's in the green there is the poisonous gas. So those types of things are going to do some damage, and based on our scenario level of 1, and our enemy levels of 2, because we're playing solo 2-handed open, these are going to actually be doing 4 damage to any enemy or hero that lands on them. So we might want to make use of these to somehow kill off some of these guys. So essentially, before we get going into gameplay, I do want to cover the generic stuff up front, and the very first thing I want to do before we get into the gameplay is talk about battle cards, because we do need to pull some cards. So I've made the deck here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to split it in half, and then we're going to grab 2 for each character, and we're going to kind of see what we get and make a choice. I am sorry, guys, that I'm not able to leave the choice up to you on the battle cards. My Gloomhaven playthrough that I'm doing, that's for the main campaign, allows you to do a selection, but with this Kickstarter campaign, I have to we only have a short window of time in order to put the videos out, so I can't wait for that feedback, so I do have to do this myself. So I do apologize for that, but I really do appreciate all the comments and feedback I have been getting. It's been great. So the Tinker is on my left, by the way. Sorry if I didn't mention that for any of you who haven't been following along since the beginning. And he pulled we pulled a Straggler card and a Fast Healer. So the Fast Healer says your current hit point value must be equal to your maximum hit point value at the end of the scenario. So in other words, we just have to be at 8. And 8 is our max value for being at level 1. We just need to make sure we stay at 8. Now this is actually potentially doable, being that the Tinker actually has a decent amount of heal cards, and it's something that we almost did in the last scenario. So that's a doable battle goal card. Let's take a look at the other one. The other one's called Straggler. Take only a long rest during this scenario. So this one's also doable as well, but you also have to remember that if we go ahead and do this, if we get into a tight situation where we're not doing so hot, we won't be able to, like, long resting can be a very restrictive choice in that we don't get to perform any actions during the round. So this could be tough. I'm kind of leaning more towards the Fast Healer. I'm thinking that I can do my best to try to get him up to full health by the end of the scenario. So I'm going to go ahead with that one because I want the ability to short rest. I find it really useful at times when things get tight and you need those extra cards in your hand. So I'm going to go ahead and put the Straggler off to the side. We're going to take the Fast Healer card, put it over here with the Tinker. And now we're going to move over to the Cragheart and pull up the 2 cards for him. So we got Purist, another 2 checkmark. Wow, Cragheart's getting really lucky. So the purist says, use no items during the scenario. Wow. So, I mean, if anyone could do it, it probably would be him. Now, the items we have are the Cloak Invisibility, and we also have a minor stamina potion, both very useful. So that's a tough one, being that I really kind of want to use those items. The other one we got here is Plunderer. Well, this kind of sounds like it might kind of match the scenario a little better. So this one says, loot a treasure overlay tile during the scenario. Well, I mean, we can guarantee that. So, and to be honest, if we remember from the prior video, the Crank Heart already has 2 check marks. So if we just get 1 more, we can actually do a perk upgrade at the end of the scenario versus doing this one and risking not having these items available during the scenario. So I'm actually going to hold back and do the 1 check mark this time. And we're going to see if we can get these check marks instead of just 1 character getting the check marks. So I'm going to put that in there and we're going to try to go for that during the scenario. We'll see how it works out. So Mr. Purist, I'm very sorry. It was a great card, and probably there'll be others who are going to raise their fists in anger and say, how dare you put that 2 checkmark card back in the Battle Gold deck. That's a terrible thing to do, but I honestly think that we're going to need these cards at some point, and I'm gonna want them in my hands. So just my choice. So I guess that's pretty much it. So that essentially wraps up the starting of this particular scenario called a Quatryl Scorned, and we're going to move right into the very first turns in the next video. So please join me and subscribe and follow along and throw in your feedback as you watch the videos. I hope you guys enjoy it, and until next time, keep rolling solo.